السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. توحيدوسنة.com.
الحمد لله الذي هدى، والصلاة والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى، خصوصا على سيد الرسل وخاتم الأنبياء وعلى آله وأصحابه الذين اجتبى. أما بعد، فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات كانت لهم جنات الفردوس نزلا خالدين فيها لا يبغون عنها حولا. صدق الله العظيم. In the previous session we were talking about Imam Malik rahimahullah, one of the great scholars of Islam, well-known Imam of the fiqh, an Imam that was followed in many different portions and countries of the world. And still, there are hundreds of thousands of people who follow this Imam, or we should say trust this Imam in following the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. As I mentioned in the previous session, Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi, in the early age, he was not towards learning. In fact, he was running away from it. Gradually, with the effort of his mother, his hobbies, his lifestyle, and his mentality, his thinking, his way of thinking changed. It was the wisdom of his mother, the hard work, and the effort that she put towards the raising of the children and the education of the son, and towards granting an ummah a gift of that type. She really did not just work on her son, which means just towards her family. She offered the ummah such a great gift that a person who wanted to be a singer, a person whose hobbies were playing with pigeons, finally he becomes the Imam of the Ummah. A great lesson for the mothers, that if we put our efforts towards raising our children, towards educating our children, and mentally working with them, that making sure that they mentally are thinking right, the values that are set in their mind are the right values from the Sharia's point of view. And this is what she did. Subhanallah, one of the big steps she took towards that direction, which was easy at the same time, but the effects of that effort were great, that was sending him to the gathering of Rabi'atul Rai. But Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi in his childhood now started spending time in the gathering of Rabi'atul Rai, a gathering that was held in the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, benefiting from that gathering and the people, the virtuous people that are in the gathering, and then being in the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the anwar, the barakat, the blessings of Allah that are coming down on that type of gathering, of course, they affected the heart of Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi. Of course, these are young hearts. When they are clean and pure, it's only because of being in a wrong atmosphere. They may carry wrong, different type of hobbies and wrong ideas about what to do in this world. But finally, when Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi at that young age, when they are not responsible for their sins, but of course, it's a time when everything is getting developed in their hearts. Their minds and their hearts are getting developed with certain way of life. That was the time when his mother started sending him to the masjid, and he's sitting in that gathering. He started benefiting from that gathering. And the effect of that gathering, the effect of being in the masjid, the effect of being then in the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the rahmah, the barakah that was there affected his heart and he started changing. And of course, at the same time, we need to realize the power of Iman, the power and the nur of this Iman comes according to the hardships and difficulties the person goes through, which we normally call it mujahada in simple words. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سَبُلَنَا. Those who will struggle for us, we will surely guide them to our path. What does mujahada mean? Mujahada means struggle. What does struggle mean? Not necessarily going through difficulties and hardship. It could be in one of the two ways. Number one, either a person makes himself go through difficulties and not really putting himself into a hardship where he would suffer on the hands of others. No, making some struggle for the deen of Allah. For example, getting up during the night time. It's a big struggle. It's a struggle, but it's by choice. A person may choose to do that, and through that will receive a lot of power of Iman and nur of Iman. Other struggles like fasting, like reciting Qur'an, and all kind of ibadah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they of course require struggle from our behalf. Sometimes when we don't choose to offer that struggle ourselves, then we may be forced to go through some of it. And that will be of course on the hands of others, or as we may call it, which is not necessarily the right name, natural disasters, which means a person gets sick or any other type of difficulty befalls the person where he has no choice. Through that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes the person struggle, go through hardships. Of course, it's whatever we call it, natural or whatever, it's all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes the person go through hardships and difficulties. And by that, He keeps on exalting the status of this person. When a person is with sincerity, repenting to Allah, he will have to go through one of these two. Either by choice, we do some work for the deen of Allah, and we go through some of the difficulties, some hardships, where even controlling our nafs, controlling ourselves from committing a sin, is a difficulty. Where we are making ourselves, our nafs, go through some hardship that no, I'm not going to commit the sin. I'm not going to listen to this. I'm not going to look at this. I'm not going to get involved in this. These are all mujahada, where a person is struggling for the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is all by choice and is much easier than the one that comes without choice. Therefore, it's something for us to really think about. But anyway, I was mentioning that the strength and the power in the nur of the Iman comes according to the struggle that the person offers for the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is why Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, أَشَدُّ النَّاسِ بَلَانَ الْأَنْبِيَاءِ. Anbiya struggle the most. And of course, their Iman is the most powerful Iman. The person that Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi was spending his childhood with, Rabi'a al-Rai. This was his name. This is a person who really offered a lot of sacrifice. There was a person with the name of Abdul Rahman. Abdul Rahman used to live in Medina Munawwara. His house was close to the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He is not a sahabi, he had not seen the Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, but he was a tabi'i. His wife was pregnant. During the pregnancy, he realized that there is need to go out fi sabilillah in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he arranged whatever he could for his wife. In addition to that, he gave her 30,000 dinar, that in case you need it at any time, you can use that. I'm burying that in one of the corners of the house. And rest of it here, what you have is for your own use, so keep on using it until I come back. And subhanallah, this Abdul Rahman got so busy out there that did not get the opportunity of coming back to his home for 27 years. Abdurrahman did not come back home to Medina Munawwara for 27 years. This is when people had that importance of the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That here the deen requires something from me. I need to offer something for it. How can I just go home and sit back? After 27 years, when Abdurrahman came back home, it was almost before Salatul Asr. He arrives there. As he knocks at the door of his house, a man opens up the door. So Abdurrahman gets into fight with that man, that this is my house. And he had asked people already that if Abdurrahman's wife is still alive. And they told her yes. They told him yes, she is alive. And she's in the same house. So he goes over there. And there is a man in the house. So he gets into a fight with this man until people get together and they tell them that, look, this man that you're fighting with is not a stranger. This is your own son. Abdurrahman, after getting home, he asked his wife about how she was doing and everything. And at the same time, he asked her about the money that he had left behind. She said, don't worry, I have all of that saved for you. Go for Salah, and after Salah, when you come back, I'll get it out and bring it to you. He goes for Salatul Masjid in the Masjid, for Salatul Asr in the Masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. After Salah, people are gathered around that same young man, and he's giving a talk about Islam. People are learning Islam from him. He's so proud. My son is teaching deen in the Masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He goes back home to tell his wife what he had seen in the masjid. She said, what is dearer to you? Those 30,000 dinar that you left behind, or this position of your son that you have seen in the masjid? He said, of course. And of course, we can imagine a person who have offered so much sacrifice for the deen of Allah, 27 years out there. So of course, we know what's valuable to him. He says, of course, nothing comparable to what I have seen, the position of my son. She said, I spent those 30,000 dinar on the education of your son. And that son was Rabi'ah, the teacher of Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi. So of course, a mother who offered all of that sacrifice. The whole family, the father, mother, and the son. Imagine the hardships that they have gone through for the sake of the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, working for the deen of Allah. So of course, Imam Malik rahimahullah is sitting in the company of that type of person. He's getting the effect of it. He's getting the rahmah, he's feeling the power there. Rabi'ah bin Abdurrahman, who's sitting in the masjid and teaching people the deen of Allah, is just like a generator over there, who's generating power, and everyone that connects himself to Rabi'ah feels that his iman, nur of iman, is getting so high that this person is in a different world. Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi, after spending many years in the company of Rabi'atul Rai, now he thought I should start learning hadith from some other teachers. And Rabi'ah is known as Rabi'atul Rai. The reason for that is, Al-Rai means opinion. And because he was faqih, in those days, fuqaha were known the people of Rai. Because there were two sides, the people of hadith, which means those who memorize their hadith. This is all they do. They memorize their hadith. When you want to know about the wording of a hadith and the authenticity of those wordings, you go to one of these muhaddithin. And if you want to know about the meaning of the hadith, you go to one of the people who are known by the term Ar-Rai. So Rabi'ah is known as Rabi'atul Rai because he is the person who talks, or whose mostly his gatherings are about the explanation of the hadith and the meanings of the hadith and the masail that we derive and the rulings that we derive from the Qur'an and hadith. Just like in Kufa, at that same time, there were two schools of thoughts. One was of Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayh, that was known as Madrasatul Rai, Ashabul Rai. And the other was the class of Sufyan al-Thawri rahimahullah, who was known as Madrasatul Hadith. That if you want to know about the authenticity of the wordings of the hadith, go to Sufyan al-Thawri. If you want to know about the meanings of it, go to Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayh. And they used to go to each other for the same type of things. So this is the reason Rabi'a is known as Rabi'atul Rai. And Imam Malik was one of his students, and in fact Rabi'atul Rai was one of the favorite teachers of Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayh. So Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayh got into the depth of fiqh, of understanding the rulings and the meanings through his teacher Rabi'atul Rai. And this is, subhanallah, finally we see that Imam Malik coming as one of the four great A'imma of fiqh is through the teachings of his teacher Rabi'atul Rai. And this is same Rabi'a, the son of Abdul Rahman, who spent 27 years out of his home. During the same time, there was another great muhaddis in Medina Munawwara, whose name was Ibn Hurmuz. Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi wanted to memorize ahadith. He learned the fiqh here. He wanted to memorize the ahadith. He says, I thought Ibn Hurmuz will be one of the best people for me to learn the hadith from, to memorize the hadith from. And accordingly, Imam Malik started going to the gatherings of Ibn Hurmuz with the permission from his teacher Rabi'a. Rabi'a had a great respect for Imam Malik. Imam Malik spent a lot of years with him. So he knows that he has a lot of ability of deriving the masail from Qur'an and Hadith. So he also permitted him to go over there and memorize the Hadith, because he knew the sharp memory Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi has and the ability of deriving the masail. So he permitted him, he said, go and learn the Hadith, memorize the Hadith. So he went and started spending time with Ibn Hurmuz. Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi devoted his life for the learning of deen. And in those days, when we use the word devoted to the education, it's totally different than the term that we use it nowadays, or we can understand it nowadays. Nowadays, a person who's very devoted to it, it's a person who may spend holidays only not studying, and the rest of the time is studying. And then he has only about 6-7 hours of rest, because he is devoted to his studies, and that's all he does. He rests for 6-7 hours, the rest of the day he's studying. But in those days, devotion to the studies of hadith especially meant that this person does not have food to eat. He does not get time to sleep. Whenever he would get a chance, he would just lay down at the doorsteps of his teacher's home. This is a half an hour that I have before my teacher will walk out of the house, so let me just have a little rest outside of his home there. At the doorstep, in the blistering heat of Medina Munawwara, this person, who's known later on as Imam Malik, that Malik bin Anas, is laying down at the doorsteps of the houses of his teacher. Devotion to the studies. Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi, he says, I started serving Ibn Hurmuz, not just learning from him. I started serving him, like a servant in those days would do a work. And the reason for that was because I wanted the closeness from that teacher, so that I can maximize the benefit of learning from him at all occasions, at all times, because I'm serving him. So I can be with him at all times. Even when he's resting, I'm around him. I'm learning how he rests, and during that time, if he remembers something special about the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would inform me of it. 7 to 8 years he spent with his teacher Ibn Hurmuz. And he served him in such a way that people, newcomers to Medina Munawwara, would think that Imam Malik really is a servant of Ibn Hurmuz. In fact, some of the close people to Imam Malik, they thought for long years that Imam Malik is one of the slaves and the servants that works in the house of Ibn Hurmuz. This is how he devoted himself to serving his teachers so that he can learn from him. In 7 to 8 years, as he memorized the hadith that he could get from Ibn Hurmuz, now he thought, I need to spend some time with one more person. And spending time with that person will really give a final touch-up to the knowledge of Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi for him to become the Imam. Who was that person? A person who was known to be very knowledgeable, but at the same time, he had a strict personality. And for that reason, people were not going too much to him. People would normally stay away. The personality was a little strict, but at the same time, he's very knowledgeable. That was Nafi'. You know who was Nafi'? He was the student of Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu. Let us quickly see who is Abdullah ibn Umar. Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu is the son of Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, and a person that during the differences of the Sahaba ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'een, during the time of Muawiyah radiallahu anhu and Ali radiallahu anhu, during those differences, Sahaba were unanimous that if Abdullah ibn Umar will be chosen as the Khalifa, all of us will agree to it. This is the type of person he was, Abdullah ibn Umar. That all the Sahaba were ready to be unanimous on the Khilafah and to agree on the Khilafah of Abdullah ibn Umar. And Sahaba themselves say that after Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam passed away, some years after that, there was some change in our life. The only person who had no change whatsoever in his lifestyle and his dealings and anything he would do was Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu. Amongst the Sahaba, he was known to be the person who is the best follower of the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He used to follow the Sunnah and the ways of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in each and every detail of it. To the extent, if Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam during his journeys he went somewhere to use the bathroom, Abdullah ibn Umar would just go and sit over there, not using the bathroom at that place, of course, will not dare to do that, but would just sit over there, that this is how I have seen Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam doing at this point. To that extent. So of course, if it's to that extent, then imagine his way of eating, drinking, sleeping, talking, everything else was exactly the copy of what Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had done. Nafi' spent 30 years with Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu. 30 years. Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu had a special place in the masjid where he used to sit and teach people hadith. In the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that was between the minbar and the house of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam at a place where Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam normally would rest during his i'tikaf in the month of Ramadan. That was the place where Abdullah ibn Umar would sit to teach people the deen of Allah. After he passed away, Nafi' would sit at the same position. Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi started going to Nafi'. He says, I know that he was strict, and he would not accept anyone to be around him for too long. So he says, I used to spend my time just waiting for him to come out of his home before the time of Salah. And of course, those people would come masjid much earlier than the time of Salah. So he said, I would be sitting at his doorstep waiting for him to come out. As soon as the door opened, I would stand and start walking, pretending that I wasn't waiting for him. I'm just standing over there, I was just passing by. And I would just say salam to him and look at him to see how is his mood at this time. Can I go and ask him something or not? Then I would wait until he would go to the masjid, let him do the 2 rak'at tahiyyat al-masjid he wants to do. Then I would just go and sit next to him. Of course, I'm sitting in the saf. Then, if I see that he's just sitting quietly, he's not doing anything, I'll say salam to him once again. Okay, that salam, that reply of the salam will give me the feeling, should I go further or not? So if I have the feeling that, okay, I can go further, I will ask him, how did Abdullah ibn Umar do this? And of course, when I would talk to him about Abdullah ibn Umar, he would open up. So he would tell me that, and he would tell me a few more things, then I would just stay quiet. And finally, another opportunity, until I can ask him one more question about how Abdullah ibn Umar did something else. And this is how Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi started gathering all the fatwa of Abdullah ibn Umar from Nafi'. And finally, look the method he's using for learning, subhanAllah, it shows the zeal that he has for learning the deen of Allah. And finally, Imam Malik was known to be the most knowledgeable person about the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in Medina Munawwara, because he is the student of Nafi', and Nafi' is the student of Abdullah ibn Umar, and Abdullah ibn Umar was the best follower of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in these details of the Sunnah. And Malik, Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi, was the most knowledgeable about that, because he was the only student of Nafi' who had spent long years around Nafi' learning from him all of these fatwa of Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhu. And one of the chain of the hadiths, there are chains of narrators. One of the chains of the hadith that is called Silsilatul Dhahab, the golden chain of hadith, is this chain of hadith, Malik and Nafi' and Abdullah ibn Umar. This is the golden chain of hadith. We have values of our own golden chains, but muhaddithin, subhanallah, you offer them any gold in the world. If he has that golden chain, he will tell you, I have the most valuable chain in the world. There are some more, and one of these is this chain of narrator, Malik. He narrates on the authority of Nafi', and Nafi' narrates on the authority of Abdullah ibn Umar. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi through these efforts. And still we did not talk about his efforts. Inshallah, we'll talk about some of those efforts in our next gatherings. Through these efforts, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him. After Nafi', Imam Malik was the person who would sit in that position in the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, where Abdullah ibn Umar used to sit initially. Then Nafi', and now Malik was sitting in the same position to teach people about the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And still his teachers are around. Still great scholars are there. Finally, there was a saying known in Medina Munawwara. People started just having a saying on their tongue. Where it came from, there is a reason for it, but then all of a sudden it spread so fast as if it was something that people are just told and everyone is asked to say it. And the saying was, La yufta wa malikun fil Medina. No one should give a fatwa as long as Malik is in Medina. Subhanallah. While the teachers are still there. While great scholars, and this is the time of tabi'een, of taba' tabi'een. And people are saying, La yufta wa malikun fil Medina. No one should give the fatwa as long as Malik is in Medina. What was the reason for it? And what made him to come to that situation? Inshallah, we'll talk about some of those in our next sessions. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات وآخر دعوانا